Hello everyone, today I'm back with a new video and I'm going to share with you my favorite cheek and face brushes. And this was a popular request on Twitter. I asked if you wanted to see the face and cheek or the eyes and lips edition. So the face and cheeks won by a landslide. So let's get started with my favorite everyday brush. I use this to apply my powder foundation or any setting powder. This is my Bobbi Brown bronzer brush, and even though it's a bronzer brush, I like that it's a slightly flatter top. It doesn't have the arched round top of a normal powder brush, and I feel like this brush sits better against my face so that I can buff the powder in so that it doesn't just sit on top of my skin and it blends beautifully. So I do own a holiday black and gold limited edition set, so they no longer make this style, but you can buy the permanent edition, which is black and has a wooden handle, I believe. So you can find this brush in store, so I highly recommend it for powder. Now, another brush that I use for powder often, and I get tons of questions about this because of this carved handle. This is a limited edition MAC 187, and as most of you know, I love limited edition pieces, so I do have a lot of these collectibles that you can't find anymore, but that doesn't mean that the brush isn't available in the stores. This is a standard MAC 187. I've touched the standard ones and they all feel exactly the same. It just has a slightly different handle. So Marcel Wanders does collaborate with MAC pretty often, so you might be able to catch a similar version of this carved handle sometime, but this is a really great brush, and this is my favorite face brush from MAC. And as much as I do like the MAC 187, it's really soft, so it's great for face powder and bronzer and blush, but I do like my slightly stiffer Laura Mercier version, and this is called the finishing brush, and I actually like to use this to dust on really fine powder because I feel her stippling brush has slightly more resistance, so it really gets those fine powders onto the skin well. And I originally bought this to use with my Laura Mercier loose bronzer, which I still love and will still wear when I want a slightly shimmery bronze. And to this day, nothing applies that particular loose powder perfectly the way this one does. Now for the next brush, this is for blush. This is again another one of the black and gold holiday editions, but this is a permanent style of Bobbi Brown's blush brush, and I adore this. This is probably my favorite still available blush brush, and I just like to take the blush color, which is perfect for Chanel blushes, and I just like to pat the color onto my cheek. So I really love this blush brush, excuse me, and I do highly recommend this one, especially because it's soft and it holds its shape really well. Now we'll continue with the cheek brushes since we already started. This is my first Hakuhodo brush, and I adore Hakuhodo now. I can't stop thinking about what I should get next. I'm probably going to purchase something from the S1000 collection, which has 18 karat gold and an orange lacquered handle. I really love the color orange, so that's probably going to be my next one. But I really like Hakuhodo brushes because Blue Squirrel is one of my favorite natural fibers for brushes. Dior used to use a lot of Blue Squirrel, but they changed up their brushes, so none of the ones that I have are currently available. They're all discontinued. So I do like this Hakuhodo, and I think it's a great bang for your buck. Obviously the packaging is very simple. It's nothing fancy, black and silver, really plain, but the quality is there, and this applies bronzer, blush, contour, all of it. This is a great multitasker, so I particularly love this shape. Now, if you're looking for something similar, but you don't want something as soft, then the Shu Uemura 20H Pony does just as well. And as you can see, this is the Shu Uemura and this is the Hakuhodo. The Hakuhodo holds its shape a little better, so I think it's best for contouring or bronzer, whereas the Shu Uemura is great for blush. And now for the blush brush that everyone asks me about. This is my Suqqu blush brush, and I purchased this from a website called dollyleo.com. Unfortunately, Dolly Leo has gone out of business, so the only way you can acquire Suqqu is by paying the incredibly high markup on some of the Japanese cosmetic websites and pay the really expensive shipping. But if you know someone that travels to London or lives in London, then they can purchase the product at a counter and have it shipped to you. These Suqqu brushes are really expensive, and I do love the black handle. It's really lightweight. The brush's craftsmanship is undeniable. However, is it worth the cost and the trouble to get this? No. When you have access to Hakuhodo and you can have it shipped to you from the US, they're based out of Redondo Beach, California, you can definitely find something that will suit your preferences that is a smaller brush head like this one. and slightly rounded at the top, more like a powder brush. I highly recommend sticking with Hakuhodo and not going through the trouble of tracking down the Suqqu unless you just really want a Suqqu brush. Now, one last blush brush. This is my Sigma Duo Fiber Powder and Blush Brush. Number F15. This is the mini version. I have the London set, so this has 18 karat gold here and a brown handle, but you can get the full-size one in black and silver, or you can get the mini versions of this. But I really love this Duo Fiber because it has a soft, rounded edge, and it's great for blending in bronzer and blush. So if you applied too much, this is a great buffer brush for removing excess product or just continuing to blend in your blush and your bronzer. So I highly recommend this one just because it's a great tool to have on hand. Oh no, I take that back. I do have one more blush brush. This is the Shu Uemura 17 Pony and Squirrel. This has a slightly thicker texture. It's not as soft of a brush, but I do like this for very light blush application. This particular style falls more along the lines of the Asian blush technique, where they just pat a very light hint of blush to the cheek, whereas I feel like in America we prefer a stronger cheek look for the most part. So this is a very subtle, very specific tool, but if that's the kind of look you go for, and if you have watched Korean makeup artist Chung Seung-Mool's videos, then you'll know that this style of brush is the one she uses. And because no face and cheek brush review could be complete without a foundation brush, I'm going to introduce to you my Tom Ford No. 2 Cream Foundation Brush. And this is a cream foundation brush, so I do recommend that you use it for a cream formulation. But the reason I'm showing this to you instead of any other foundation brush is that I prefer my Beauty Blender sponges to a traditional foundation brush. Whereas this particular brush is meant for dense foundation products, so it blends in creams flawlessly. Tom Ford's, MAC's, Chanel's, I highly recommend it. It was at first a splurge in my opinion, and I didn't think that it was worth the money because I like my brushes to be balanced in weight from front to back. However, this brush is very front heavy, so I didn't like that. I thought for the price it should have had a heavier handle. However, the more I use it, the more I've come to like it, and I love the way it feels in my hand, where I can really get that that cream product into my skin. Just buff one direction and then buff the other direction. That way you'll get a more seamless look and better, fuller coverage. So now I'm going to wrap up the video with my last brush. The very first brush that I showed you, I use every day with my powder, regardless of whether it's the Clé de Peau, the Becca, whatever I feel like using that day, I do reach for this. But there's another brush that I reach for every day when I apply my bronzer. Generally, I don't wear makeup every day. The only time I wear a full face like this is when I'm sitting in front of the camera filming. However, every time I do wear bronzer, I do reach for this brush, and I reach for my Tarte Amazonian Clay Bronzer, which I have been using very regularly if you follow my blog and keep up with the makeup that I wear in my videos. But the Sigma Tapered Face Brush, the F25, is probably the best bang for your buck all over bronzer brush, and I use this religiously. I put it all over my temples, along my cheekbones, down the sides of my nose, and underneath my chin. So this brush is affordable, and it has lasted me quite a while. It does bleed and shed at first, but I've washed it so many times it doesn't do that anymore, and it's held up its shape really well. As you can see, it's still pointy. So I really love this brush and I highly recommend it. I will be purchasing the Hakuhodo version of this style in the S1000 series that I mentioned earlier. So once I get that one, I will post a comparison. Obviously that Hakuhodo brush is much more expensive, but if you're just looking for an everyday brush, one that's reliable and one that works, then the Sigma one is the way to go. So I really do love this, and as you guys know, you've seen this in tutorials and videos all over the place, so I do love this. And that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will be posting my favorite eye and lip brushes sometime next week or the week thereafter, so please stay tuned. I also will be posting a review of the Tom Ford Lip Shine colors. So thanks so much for tuning in, everyone, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye!